Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A. So let me get my hat on, and let's get to the first question. All right. How do your newb 2, 3, and 4 plate squat, bench, deadlift standards change if you're cutting on the novice program? How strong and how fast can you expect to get if you're an average healthy male starting at 20 to 25% body fat and dieting to say 12%, assuming a non-stupid conservative diet? All right, brother. When I say that people who are obese or morbidly obese can cut, particularly as a newb, and gain strength just as if people who are bulking were, I'm not talking about someone who's 20% body fat and a healthy young man. All right, if you're 20% body fat, you're a little on the high end for body fat, but you're not obese. You're going to find actually you're going to stall pretty quickly on strength gains. Meaning you might go into a novice program with a slow cut at that point, and you might make almost newb gains for the first 2 or 3 months. Then after that, they're going to grind to a halt. If you are losing weight and you're under 20% body fat, which you will be very quickly, you're going to struggle to gain strength and gain muscle. It's going to be a hard fight. Expect to take 2, maybe 3 times as long to get your strength goals. And if you're talking about a very conservative cut, you could be looking at 6 months to go from 20% body fat down to 12. In which case, expect to only make 3 months worth of progress in that 6 months. Meaning, if you're starting at 20 to 25% body fat, you are not going to be cutting for the duration of the novice program. But yeah, expect it to take during a cut. You need to first of all run the cutting version. You try to run the full version of this program and you're in your teens in your body fat percentage and you're losing weight, you will bury yourself. In fact, you expect to stall completely. Expect to possibly gain no strength and muscle at a certain threshold very, very quickly. It's too much workload. You need to run the cutting version of the program, which means you cut the progression rate in half and you do 3 sets of 5 instead of 5 sets of 5. You cut all the volume down to about 2/3 or 3/5 in that case, so down to about 60%. Same thing, the 3 sets of 8, you cut those down to 2 sets of 8. You simply cannot expect to progress at the normal rate while you're cutting like that. It's not going to happen when you're down in the teens already. Maybe when you're over 20% for just a short period of time. But you're not going to be able to sustain that indefinitely. But you know what? The strength standards are the same. When you finish the program, that's what I expect of you. That's what I expect of you. Meaning you're not done with the program till you get there. So because you're cutting for part of it, you might not reach it in a year. It might take you a year and a half. But you know what? That's okay. You'll still reach it. And remember, you're a novice until you're done with that. And when you get done with hitting those standards, you can go on to an intermediate program. But you definitely need to run the cutting version of the program, and you need to understand that your progress is going to be slower. Particularly when you're where you're at. You got to remember, you're not morbidly obese at 20 to 25% body fat. You're just carrying a little extra fluff. There's an enormous difference between the two when it comes to cutting while gaining muscle at the same time. Enormous difference. All right, next question. Hey Jason, you stated that doing cardio after a lifting session could harm your strength gains due to its blunting the effects on intermediate fibers that otherwise could lean towards becoming fast twitch fibers. With this in mind, how much would 30 minutes or half an hour of cardio directly after lifting harm one's strength and muscle gains? Would it be severely detrimental to strength potential or just not optimal? Thanks. 30 minutes to an hour immediately after, I would say it would be fairly detrimental. How much? I don't think we can say for sure. It's not going to be something that I could pin down and say it's going to be 30% to 40%. Well, that might be a good guess, but we can't pin it down like that. We can't pin it down and say that, but what I will tell you, short bouts of cardio. If you want to do 15 minutes of really low intensity cardio as a cool down after you lift, that's not going to be enough to interfere. But 30 minutes to an hour absolutely will interfere with your strength gains. It will interfere with your muscle gains if you do it immediately after lifting. You shouldn't be doing that. And let's keep in mind, I'm an advocate of people doing low intensity cardio while lifting. I believe it should be incorporated into every strength program. However, you need to separate them by several hours and you need to separate them with food. All right, I want to see you re-carbed up. I want to see your glycogen stores replenished before you do any sort of real list cardio. 30 minutes to an hour, way too much immediately after training. Expect it to hurt your muscle gains. However, it depends on what your goals are. For someone whose primary goal is losing body fat, and losing body fat is more important than maximum strength gains, doing less cardio immediately after you lifting can be a very valuable tool. So people need to understand the difference here is what is your specific goals in order of priority. Is your goal right now to gain strength maximally? Then no, this is not something you should even be considering. You shouldn't even be considering because it is going to be a significant and noticeable difference in your strength gains. However, if you're trying to lose body fat fairly quickly while maintaining strength or only gaining very, very tiny amounts of strength, it's a fantastic strategy. It's an absolutely fantastic strategy. Why? Because your metabolism is pretty high. You are well into burning fat. Your body is ready to give up body fat after you lift. You've already subjected it to a large amount of training. You have a post-workout afterburn effect going. You're already in the gym. You're already being active. And if you still got energy left, that's a great time to just burn through some calories with some cardio. I mean, it's an amazing fat loss strategy, but it's not going to be ideal for body composition. It's not going to be ideal for gaining strength or gaining muscle, not even close. So you've got to factor it in order of priority. What specifically are you trying to do right now? That's what you have to ask. All right, next question. When bodybuilders are about to compete, how is it that they talk about growing into a show? I thought that due to a calorie deficit, this would be next to impossible, or is it massive drug use that allows more of a recomp effect, and how would they achieve this diet-wise? All right, guys, growing into a show is absolutely only possible with massive amounts of drugs. Generally, guys who grow into a show have to use more drugs than they use during their bulking off phase to do it, because their body is going to be less willing to put muscle mass on. They're cutting down lean. In fact, even on drugs, it isn't uncommon for pre-contest bodybuilders to lose a little bit of muscle mass. All right, it's normal to lose muscle. All right, if they're on the same amount of muscle same amount of drugs that they bulked on, they will sometimes lose a little bit of muscle when they're cutting down to 5 or 6% body fat. It's just the name of the game. The guys who are growing into a show are using hefty doses of drugs, and are using really strong drugs like trenbolone and things like that. That's how they pull that off. So anytime people talk about growing into a show, that's code for gear use. That is absolutely impossible to do drug-free. And anyone who's telling you that they're doing it drug-free is a fake natty, and they're fucking lying to you. It is almost impossible to sustain muscle mass while getting contest lean. That's the almost impossible part. So when they talk about gaining muscle, they've probably upped their dose, is what they've done. Even if they're a so-called natty, natties don't get bigger going into a show. It doesn't work that way. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to grow into a show, but it's pretty obvious why that would be. All right, next question. Squatting in heeled shoes put me in a position where I feel more comfortable and feel less pressure on my back and tightness in my ankles. Yet even after squatting in them for a year, I squat more with flat shoes now. What gives? All right, so basically what happened is you did elevated heels on your shoes, lifting shoes, squatting shoes. You improved your mobility in the squat. By improving your mobility in the bottom, through the joint angle specificity means that your strength carryover is going to go deeper. You've got stronger at the bottom while getting more mobile at the bottom. You've increased your strength out of the hole while squatting deep due to changing the angles and using the shoes as a proper tool. So it stands to reason that when you've gone back to flat-heeled shoes, your strength is increased there also. You probably have so much dramatically increased your strength at the bottom of the exercise so much and your mobility so much that your old maxes, when you're in your flat-heeled shoes coming out of the hole, are light now. So yeah, you're stronger now, even though it's a slightly different biomechanic, even though the strength curve is a little different. Squatting in the heeled corrected your technique, it corrected your mobility, and it made you a lot stronger out of the bottom. All right, it shored up the weak link in your squat. So when you go and you squat in flat heels, which were probably a problem for you before, meaning if it was painful and you were having issues, you've corrected that by improving your mobility and technique using the squat shoes. And in so doing, your squat, every type of squat's going to go up. Even squats, when you do squats in your chucks or your flat-heeled shoes or your boots, they're going to improve dramatically also, and they're probably going to be less painful than they used to be because you've corrected all the mobility issues that you had there. So congratulations, you actually used squat shoes correctly, and they've turned out to be beneficial to you all the way across the board. So that's exactly what happened there. It's exactly what happened. You fixed your problems. You fixed your mobility problems. You fixed your biomechanic problems. And you made yourself stronger due to your previous weak link in the exercise, which was the bottom of the movement. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.